Hello, everybody, and welcome back to All for United. Of course, it's been a magnificent weekend for us, Manchester United, as we did beat Manchester City 2-1 in the Manchester derby. Marcus Rashford with yet another goal. I think that might have been his ninth home goal in a row. So he's in blistering form, obviously with the assist from Alejandro Garnacho. Liverpool losing, Arsenal winning, unfortunately, Newcastle winning late, which puts us back down to fourth. But if we keep this momentum going against Palace on Wednesday, we could possibly go into the Arsenal match next weekend only 6 points behind, meaning if we do beat them, we will be 3 points off the top of the table. So this is my first question. I'm going to ask Freddie here, and I'm going to go around from Freddie to John and then to Stu. Are we in a title race?
It's a hard one, given how close we are behind Manchester City, who you would consider to be in a title race. Then you'd have to say yes. However, I think we're in a bit of a false position given the time that we're in mid-January. However, we've had the World Cup, so we're actually not where we are conventionally in a usual season in terms of the number of games played. So there's a long way to go yet. We just have to keep our feet on the ground and keep doing what we're doing, keep getting points as we do. I think the issue is now it's a good issue, but we've got the cup competitions coming up, 2 legs against Barcelona, 2 legs in the Carabao semi-final. So I think we'll just take each step as it comes. I don't think we should be getting carried away with any title talk. I think the aims at the start of the season were to solidify top 4. It looks like at this stage that we are going to get that, given that other teams around us are dropping points. But I think that Arsenal are probably too far ahead, in my opinion, and I do worry that all it takes is 1 or 2 injuries, and we could see our form decline heavily, especially. I think there were a lot of hearts in mouth yesterday when Rashford went down and he was smashing the ground, and it could have been a completely different result and few results in the future. So I don't think we're there yet. However, I think if anyone's mentioned that would be in this position at the start of the season, you would have bitten their hand off. But yeah, I think we just concentrate on the cup competitions, concentrate on getting top 4. Hopefully, we get some positive news off the field in terms of the ownership as well. And then, I'd consider that a very good season. But yeah, fantastic position. Just keep getting the points, and if we can overtake City or get closer to Arsenal, then happy days.
Well, I will pick up on something you said. Conventionally, we wouldn't be we wouldn't have played this many games by January, because technically we're not even 19 games in, so we're still in the first half of the season. But what I will say is, for me personally, I know we're not second and I know we're not first, but I feel more confident. I feel like we can actually get to the top of the table. But John, we've been in these positions before since Sir Alex Ferguson left. We've been second, we've even been top. But during those times, in the back of your mind, or in the back of my mind at least, I knew deep down that we wouldn't be able to maintain it. We wouldn't be able to actually go the full distance and cross the finish line first. Do you feel different this season?
I mean, yeah, I think it's certainly interesting that it does feel a bit different with Ten Hag, because we are even you mentioned those time maybe under Solskjaer, Mourinho, when we've been in a similar position. It didn't always feel like a team, whereas this does kind of feel like the makings of a team, perhaps. And I personally think that, it's too early to say whether we're concerned. Yeah, I mean, mathematically, you'd have to say yes, we are, because we are halfway through the season. Arsenal have a few points for us, but we'd say City are in a title race, and we're only 1 point behind them. And by next week, we would have played both City and Arsenal, and they've still got to play each other twice. So you just don't know how it'll plan out. But I do think, just as a general point across the league, it's probably the best league we've had for a number of years, because it's quite unpredictable. Nobody would have expected us to be this high in the table at this stage. Nobody would have expected City to fall in the way they've had. Nobody would have expected Arsenal in near the top. And you look at teams like Chelsea and Liverpool, you wouldn't have thought they'd be this bad. So it is unpredictable. So you don't know what's going to happen. But what we do have is obviously this winning run. It will come to an end at some point. But the momentum is there. And that's the key word when it comes to sport. It's momentum. Obviously, Freddie's right. So, focus on, the league and top four and, the cup competition. But quite simply, it's take a game at a time, just focus on the Palace game and the Arsenal game and see where it takes us. But where we are at is we're at a point now where we don't have to make decisions about what's prioritised yet. Obviously, we might get injuries and, we're injuries to some key players like Rashford or Casemiro or players like that might deter us. But for the time being, we are in a good position. Hopefully, what you can say is we're in a position where we can hopefully achieve Champions League places minimum and hopefully win a trophy like the League Cup and that. But at this moment, it's precaution to say whether we're in the title race or not.
Now, Stu, we've just beat Manchester City. We're 1 point behind them and kind of touching distance off top of the table. Do you think it would be a disappointment if we were to only finish fourth or barely scrape Champions League football for next season?
So the interesting thing about footy is that as soon as you cross that white line on the very first game of the season, you're automatically in the title race, period.
Yeah.
Unless your mentality tells you you're not, then you just keep bulldozing your way across until finally you cross the white line and it's mathematically impossible. So whether people like it or not, and superstitions come into play with football all the time. I'll start crying if I don't get my favourite number 8 shirt, for example. I won't play unless I've got wear number 8. Things like that. Superstition is really key to footballers' mentality and fans' mentality. But right now, where we are, we have to be considered as a serious title contender because City is still favourites, by the way, with the bookies. They're still favourites to overturn Arsenal. Now, I watched Arsenal today, probably like most of you, and they are a decent side. They're a good, solid outfit. Tottenham put them under a lot of pressure in the second half, but they sucked it up and really should have scored an extra 2 goals in the second half. Should have come away 4-0 winners. We're going to find it very, very difficult next weekend to stamp our authority at the Emirates. So would it be disappointing to finish? Well, I think that with that 5-point cushion, I think that's enough now for us. Nothing's ever guaranteed in football, but that just gives you that little bit, psychological edge, I suppose, over the other teams in and around you. I think they'll take points off each other. The Fulhams, the Tottenhams, the Liverpools, they'll all take points off each other. Brighton, who are in the mix behind. So I think top 4, another 3 or 4 good wins, and we should pretty much take care of it. So for me, when I walk into any dressing room, aspirations for the season are you win the title, because it's a failure if you don't. Anything above top spot, below top spot's a failure if you don't. That's just the way that it works. So I just want to go in, win as many games as we can. I said right at the very beginning of the season that we need to put together a string of 10 wins on the bounce. So we're almost there. We're 1 away from it, and that will take you somewhere. That's what it's done. And it's taken us somewhere. It's kept us in all the cup competitions, and it's kept us. Well, we're a negative 3rd, aren't we, at the minute, because we're on the same games as Newcastle. It's only goal difference the start of the season that's really put us down to 4th. So I think we can do it. People say we can't. I think opinions. That's what football's about. But I think we've got a really, really good chance, because I guarantee you now, City will take. But it'll be one. I think Arsenal win at home, City win at their home at the Etihad, and they'll drop points. And we've got to make sure that we beat Arsenal. We're going to play City again now. We won't have to play Arsenal again after we've done that. Everything's in our favour. So I think we need a midfielder. I think with Donny missing now to the end of the season, I think we need to get a midfielder in on loan. Who that could be, I don't know. I'll go and knock on Inter Milan's door and get Marcel Brozovic in, quite frankly, because they're not exactly having a good time with it, are they, Milan, at the minute? It'd be a great little addition to the side. So, it would be disappointing in answer to your main question.
I mean, with Brozovic, I wanted him in the summer, but he signed a new contract extension. So
I wanted him for years.
Steve's wanted him for a very long time.
Yeah,
I'm a fan of him.
Deja vu.
Yeah.
But with the top four, I agree with you. I'd be disappointed as well, given the position we're in, given the confidence that we seem to be playing with. But football is, a game of fine lines. And I mean, the equaliser, Bruno Fernandes' equaliser could have gone either way. It's one of those ones where, because we scored, we're happy. You might think shouldn't have been a goal, or it should have been a goal. But if it was to be a Grealish goal or a Haaland goal, you could be going absolutely mental. Do you think the goal should have stood?
Yeah, the mistake on that one, Anton, was City. City made the mistakes. City made the errors because the lad who was defending, Akanji, yeah, first and foremost, didn't look to see where the runners were coming from. He allowed Rashford to get on his blind side, and he was playing for offside. He said so himself, I'm playing for offside. Fair enough. But if Rashford's offside, then Rashford can't touch the ball. Okay, you can't even shield it. Rashford didn't ever make any attempt to shield the football. He didn't make his body wider.
Yeah,
he didn't stick his arse out to stop Akanji. Akanji just didn't bother tracking back as quickly as he could. And I read somewhere else that Ederson was looking at Rashford. Why? There's Rashford and Bruno coming at you. As a goalkeeper, you've got to be astute. Your peripheral vision has got to be amazing, and you can't just guarantee or throw your chips at Rashford's going to shoot, because they've already played for offside. So what Rashford did was smart. It was calculated. What Akanji did was damn right daft. And I can promise you now that Pep Guardiola would have had him about it in the changing room after and said, look, I'm going to have to go and defend you, but you're wrong, mate. You're out of order. You get back as quickly as you can. And if you think he's offside, you tug him. You pull him fucking back. Because what's the worst you're going to give away is a free kick, but he's already flagged him for offside, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Akanji did nothing about that. So, look.
It's also worth noting the linesmen don't put their flags up when a player is offside in case it's a wrong decision. They're encouraged to keep playing until a player has a shot or something.
Darren had it up early. He got his flag up early. Now, Rashford was super, super clever. He couldn't shield the ball. So Akanji should have been a lot quicker than Rashford for a start, because when I talk about ball speed, the way the ball travels, Rashford had to slow down. He had no choice. He got to slow down. So Akanji should, if he pulled his finger out, he would have got round and done it. But as a defender, if you play for offside and the play carries on, you pull him down. You pull him down and you argue the toss after it, And as an attacker, by the way, you go and you put the ball in the back of the net. You argue the toss after it. So to the letter of the law, because Rashford didn't touch it, I don't think it was interfering with play. I just think it was slack play by City. And I'm pretty sure Guardiola would have had Akanji over that. And look at Kyle Walker. What was Kyle Walker doing?
One thing I will say is there is a lot of still images that you see on Twitter and social media of Rashford, the way he runs, his arms are not straight like that. They're a tiny bit out. So the still images make it look as if he is shielding the ball. He's not. If you watch it in normal time, Akanji's never getting to the ball and he's not reaching Rashford.
Exactly.
2, Kyle Walker isn't reaching the ball because Bruno Fernandes is reaching the ball first. And 3, I keep hearing people that run fan channels, people that do punditry, they keep saying Bruno came out of nowhere. He didn't come out of nowhere. He was always there. You can't teleport on the pitch. He was there the whole time.
It comes back to, you told this even when you're playing at school and when you're young. So now, what's the number one rule they tell you every time you play to the whistle?
Yeah.
It was smart. It was smart play by Rashford all around. The cross by Casemiro was absolutely brilliant. It was a superb ball in, and Rashford got got the jump on Akanji, but yeah, he was 2 yards offside. Absolutely 2 yards offside. But the thing is, it was clever play, and City have only got themselves to blame. They really have.
Oh yeah, I mean,
They can argue what they like, but
Well, it's worth mentioning that isn't that Bruno's first goal for a while as well?
Yeah, he said something a couple of weeks ago. He's almost focusing less on the goal contributions and focusing more on his all-round play, because obviously when he did come in, he had a magnificent record, almost keeping up a goal contribution per game. But he wasn't getting a lot of praise for his, play outside of the direct goal contributions. But now it seems as if he's evolving his game, probably thanks to Ten Hag and Van der Herg and Steve McLaren, but he's not getting as many goals and assists. He's getting important goals and assists, but I prefer this Bruno Fernandes to the one that was, to be perfectly honest, scoring every game or getting an assist every game. He was up there for my man of the match. I heard before the show you guys were saying Fred. I probably would have given it to Wan-Bissaka, to be honest, because I think he had a great game. But before we get onto that, I want to ask Freddie about just a yes or no. Do you think the goal should have stood?
I'm a little bit. I'm not as sort of assertive, shall we say, as John and Stu's thoughts. I do think it should have stood, but I'm a little bit marginal. I think it's a lot. It goes down to the interpretation of the official. In most cases, it's one of those you've got to think. If it was against United, I would not be happy. However, I'm ecstatic that it went in our way. I totally agree with the guy's points. Rashford, Akanji's not getting the ball. The stills are just completely false depictions of what actually happened. I mean, Rashford continues his run from deep. Akanji stutters. John's absolutely right. He's not playing to the whistle. He assumes that Darren Cahn's going to call it offside straight away. Rashford's very superbly clever. We've completely done them effectively. So from that standpoint, I agree. The only thing I would question is Edison's position coming out. He is leaning towards Rashford. However, it's a marginal decision. I think on a different day, the officials give that offside. The law quite clearly states that it should have been given onside, despite all the pundits and the media can say that it was incorrect, but it was the correct decision at the end of the day. But it's worth emphasising another official may have given that as offside. So it's one of those grey areas that probably needs to be looked at.
It is also interesting. I noticed on BT Sport that they often ask Chris Foy for his views and that, and he almost always agrees with the referee's decision, usually. And he said when the offside was given, before he even gave the goal, he actually said, my understanding is that it should be a goal.
Yeah.
All refs said it's a goal. Everyone's going to say, and it was. It was a goal. Purely and simply Akanji's fault. If Akanji defended like he should have done, Rashford wouldn't have got through because and Anton, you're right about the way the stills about how Rashford's arms are. Well, that's the best target for a defender. Grab his fucking arm then. If you're not sure, grab his arm. The worst that's going to happen is you give a free kick away. You weren't the last man for a start because Bruno. And if you think about it, Bruno and Walker were very, very close to the way that he was. And by the time Akanji would have caught him, Bruno was alongside him and Walker was just off him. So you weren't the last man. He grabbed the arm. Take the jeopardy out of the equation. That's what you always taught as a centre half. Just take the jeopardy out of the equation and then takes your chances of Edison and say, look, I had to do it, Keeps. I need you to step up for me now, pal. That's football, That's for Edison. I thought he was slow off his line anyway. By the time he was nowhere near Rashford. By the time he come to him, he was about penalty spot area, wasn't he? Or just
sort of no man's land, wasn't he? It was like the cup game, the City, not as extreme, but where they had their sub goal in Southampton. Just put it over him. God knows what they're being told.
And he was no man's land again. And Bruno did exactly the same thing. Just cut across. It was a wonderful goal. I just thought it was clever play all around.
That's the other fault of the defender. They thought Rashford was danger. He was Bruno, wasn't it? Yeah, because they didn't look at him.
If you're Kyle Walker, all you're doing is clipping Bruno. That's what I'd be doing. If I'm Kyle Walker, I'm clipping Bruno. You know, you've got to do. You have to do. You know, if Diaz was there, their centre half Diaz, he would have cleaned Rashford out, or he'd have cleaned out Bruno. So, you know, that would have happened. Same with Stones, same with Laporta. They would have cleaned them out. You know, Martinez, if it was coming our way, he would have absolutely poleaxed Haaland or whoever it was going through it, and they didn't do that. And that's, as far as I'm concerned, you reap what you sow in football, and it's your own fault, really. Look, all these City fans crying about it, you know, fair enough, and you've just got to look at it properly. At the time, I didn't really care. I'm with Neil when Neil says, well, you know, the Sunday Times said Man United 2, Man City 1, the end. Yeah, I tend to agree with that, and it didn't really bother me. But I've looked at it again. I've looked at Kanji's position, and we've all said he wasn't getting there because he did this. He stopped and he did that. Rashford's like, fuck you. Away you go. That's exactly what a good striker should do. Ruud van Nistelrooy would have done it.
Rashford played to the whistle. He just played to the whistle.
They're just very naive, weren't they? City?
Exactly.
Very naive.
Haaland would have smashed that ball in the back of the net, gone off celebrating, and then turned around and said, oh, okay, whatever. You know. Anyway.
I think it's ironic because the rules were adjusted because of a City goal. Bernardo, it was Man City versus Aston Villa. Rodri was about 10 yards offside.
That was awful.
Mings brought it down and then he got tackled. Then Bernardo Silva put it top bins. Good goal, fair enough. But they are the reason the rules were adjusted. And now, because of the new rules, this goal is completely legal and they're on the losing side. But what I also will say is it's probably blown so far out of proportion because, one, it's Manchester United, and two, it led directly to a goal. You see dummies from offside players 2 or 3 times a weekend in the Premier League, in any league. Alexis Sanchez scored a goal for Arsenal against Chelsea, FA Cup final. Aaron Ramsey was about 10 yards offside. Looked like he was going to kick it, didn't.
Yeah.
I feel like you should remember that goal. It's happened before. It happens all the time.
Yeah, that's the closest example. Like this isn't a new phenomenon. This has been happening for years. But as you say, just because it's, you know, the occasion, Manchester United are involved, it's just the media have just jumped on it. So
it's the unfortunate consequence of being the biggest club in the world, and it just happens we're in a title race, in my opinion. So everyone is going to be trying to be against us. But that does move me on to my next question. Since Erik ten Hag has come in this season, we are 7 home games in a row unbeaten. The last time we didn't win at Old Trafford was a 0-0 against Newcastle, and the last time we did lose was against Brighton, which was 2-1. Is Ten Hag turning Old Trafford back into a fortress, or is it just a little bit too soon to kind of start making those claims, Freddie?
No, I think he is. I think we've just been absolutely superb, and I think he's put the fear factor back into us. You know, teams are, you know, we're turning up against teams, and we've got a clear style of play, and I think teams are beginning to fear us. And it's sort of half the battle happens before the game in the dugout. You know, that momentum that we've got, that important word that John mentioned earlier, that is such a big thing going into these games, and we seem to be, you know, it's like having a 12th man. Effectively, you've got the fans. I mean, the stadium seems to be buzzing every single week, and it's just superb. I mentioned it to Stu recently. In recent years, we seem to have been either big games we do well and then we lose against the lower teams, or we go on we win all our away games second half when we were coming back during COVID, and then home games we had an awful record. Ten Hag just seems to have filled all the gaps. Basically, we're just doing well against all opposition. We've got a clear style of play. I think the biggest thing he's done is he's instilled a style of play, and he's made us press resistant. I don't think that's been spoken about enough. The past 18 months to 2 years, we've just not been able to handle any press, and I think we got found out. I think I sort of started realising that. I think it was when we came back after the restart after COVID, Southampton came to Old Trafford, pressed us off the park, and then every team did that to us week in, week out, and we could not handle it. And if you're looking at the style of play yesterday, we're playing out from the back. We're playing, triangles around City, and we talk about the likes of like Wan-Bissaka, who notoriously with the ball has been a really critical part of his game, and everyone just seems to be on the same page. So I think you've got to give huge kudos to Ten Hag, all of the coaches. I'm sure Steele mentioned Steve McLaren when he gets to him. He's a big advocate of him. But yeah, look, Ten Hag, he's transformed the squads. Everyone seems to be so much better with the ball and without the ball. And yeah, look, Old Trafford, the record speaks for itself. I think he has turned it into a fortress again. And we are a force to be reckoned with, home and away. So long may it continue.
Now, I like that you said that, because, John, I think Old Trafford is becoming a fortress, or it might already be. And that makes me think of, how were you feeling when Grealish scored? When we went 1-0 down to Manchester City, what was your instant reaction to that? Were you nervous, or were you confident that we'd just be able to get back into the game?
I was. I wouldn't say I was nervous, but I was a bit like, because we were like the better team in the first half. We missed, a couple of chances with Rashford. I thought, oh God, City are going to get better in the second half. So I did think it was a bit reluctant. But having said that, even though City were dominating the ball, they weren't really creating many chances, and we did remain on par. I mean, that must have been the only great chance they had in the game. I can't remember any other. We had, Kyle Walker shooting from 40 yards, whatever it was. But there were times where, where we kept playing over the top in the first half, and it wasn't quite coming off in the second half. And I think taking Eriksen off and bringing Garnacho on changed, because it meant we had a bit of a threat. And I was just saying that for as long as it's 1-0, you're always in the game. I was like, one of those long balls, and it came from Casemiro in the end. It was just give us one of those moments, to try and get an equaliser and that. And it did come. And by that point, obviously City lost their heads complaining with the referee and all that. And I thought at that point, I think we're going to win this, I think City lost their heads. That will be a shattering blow to them. But I think what we did well is we didn't panic when we weren't playing well, but we weren't panicking in terms of how we gonna get an equaliser from this. We kept persisting, we kept it compact, and we restricted the chances they had, and that meant we were always going to be a threat on the break, and obviously both our goals came from that. Speaking about the fortress at Old Trafford, I mean, we played 4 of the top 6 at home and won all of them.
Yeah,
Liverpool,
that's massive.
Tottenham, and City. It is a massive achievement that from where we were last season, we'd come. Well, we beat Tottenham and Arsenal last season, but we come by and win Old Trafford really at times, and to turn that around so quickly and win all of them, and Chelsea's the only one we got left at home. If we were to win all against all those teams at home, it'd be to achieve success, you need to be strong at home. And if you want to be winning things, and you have to create that atmosphere, and that's what the crowd, they're buying into Ten Hag, and the crowd, the Red Army, the singing section, they're constantly supporting the team, and for as long as they do it, you've always got a chance. And I do think that it is getting back to that. I'm amazed by how quickly it's actually happened, and I do think also Pep Guardiola, I felt, was really nervous about the game. The week he was talking about it before the Southampton game, and he was like trying to think, I might do something soon or that. I think that's a sign that he didn't know how to approach this game against an informed United team, and because he knew United would be compact, it won't be the same as the 6-3 in October. So for me, even Pep Guardiola and Man City were fearing coming to Old Trafford, and they have a very good record at our ground in the last decade or so. So for me, yes, it is a sign that we are coming back and we are starting to be better at home.
Yeah. See, me personally, I just happened to be watching the game lying down. I was lying down on the sofa. When Grealish scored, I might have raised an eyebrow. I didn't flinch. I wasn't upset. I wasn't confident, I guess, because it is Manchester City, but I guess in the back of my mind, I thought, or I knew that we'd at least get a draw from the game. Now, Stu, did you think we'd get the win when we went 1-0 down?
No, I didn't actually. Look, City played with a great deal of intelligence. They really did, until we scored. And then that was it. They just went to pieces. But up until then, they played some really intelligent football, something that City have never played with before. And me and Fred were talking about this the other day, about how City always invert their full-backs, and at least one of them goes into the middle of the park to overload the middle. We obviously, Steve McLaren, and by the way, it's no coincidence that our upturning form is coinciding with Steve McLaren coming back to the club. He is an outstanding coach. He is absolutely brilliant. Tactical analysis and setting teams up. He's brilliant at that. There's absolutely no coincidence about this. The combination of Ten Hag and Van der Gaag is obviously historical as well, but McLaren coming in has added that little bit of extra je ne sais quoi, those little sprinkles I talk about from a so-called, and I will say so-called superstar that you sometimes buy. He is that good as a coach. He's added that little, that little je ne sais quoi to our play. What they noticed, and they stopped the wingers, the fullbacks, i.e. Walker and Cancelo, moving into the middle. And we did that by play through Wan-Bissaka and through Malacia. We pushed them back. There was no coincidence, by the way, that, again, we're using coincidence a lot here. It's absolutely no coincidence that Phil Foden was hardly seen during the game, because Wan-Bissaka is a master at defending. He is an absolute master at defending, not just tackling, but his positional play, when he gets it right, is phenomenal. And I think Foden touched the ball three times maybe, in the whole of the first half. But going back to their play, they were massively intelligent. Guardiola sorted it out at half-time. If you noticed, he sorted it out and he pushed Walker into the middle a bit to overload us. Now, Eriksen wasn't on his best game at the time. He was having issues with it. And obviously Fred coming into the equation takes a forward player out of the equation, which meant Bruno had to play higher up. So Eriksen couldn't be as fluid as he was because he didn't have Bruno to cover him and vice versa. The way that City started knocking the ball about and using Cancelo more, using Walker more, was the way that got at us. And if you think about Kevin De Bruyne, maybe got away from Fred 3 times, maybe 4, but certainly no more than 4. And he got in just at the right time. That play between Walker and De Bruyne, and I think it was Bernardo Silva involved as well, was superb play. The vision to watch De Bruyne's run to push the ball into him so we could get around. I'm going to say Malacia, but it could well have been Shaw. I'm not quite sure. To get the dink across in. If you look at
Casemiro,
it was Casemiro. That's right. Sorry. Now, if you look at the cross, he put a lot of backspin on that cross. People are saying, "How the hell didn't Wan-Bissaka see what was coming?" He put so much backspin on it; it was way too high for Wan-Bissaka, and it allowed the run that Grealish had got just to pop it in. It was a wonderful passage of play. Going back to from there onwards, I couldn't see us quite getting in because I couldn't see us. We weren't playing with any kind of fluidity at that point. We didn't have any control of the game. Again, I was talking to Fred the other day and I mentioned Casemiro, as good as he's been playing. I thought he was excellent, but he wasn't quite at his best. He was very anxious in his possession. The passion overspilled on occasions, and he wasn't quite his domineering best. Having said that, because they weren't playing Walker in the centre for the first half, he didn't need to be in the first half. Once they did, our deficiencies with having Fred, unfortunately, because he was there to do a job for Kevin De Bruyne, allowed City more space. Hence, that's why they were getting at us, and we couldn't get out. Once we got that goal, this is where Casemiro was brilliant. Wan-Bissaka, brilliant turn of play, nice little dink into Casemiro. Casemiro takes one touch, bang, he whips it. That's where Akanji was completely caught out with the speed of the play, the 2 little passes, bang. That's where Akanji was taking that. Once that happened, John's right and Freddie's right. The whole complex of the game changed, completely changed, just like that, just like flicking a switch. And then we became better in our defensive unit. And as soon as we got the ball out, we sprung. Garnacho comes into play. And I thought Garnacho, look, and I've criticised Garnacho, you know I have, because the ball moves a lot quicker than his brain, etc. But I thought they've got at him clearly during the week and have spoken to him and said, look, when you get into these positions, you've got to start looking up because you've got to deliver. You can't just go to the byline, try and cut back, blah, 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 blah. And he did. Every time he had the ball, he penetrated brilliantly to penetrate with pace. Kyle Walker was absolutely petrified. I've never seen Kyle Walker scared of anyone when it comes to one defending. Never. He was petrified of him. And he became his thought process, Garnacho's thought process moving forward, allowed us to kind of disrupt City. So A, they were pissed off because of the goal, and B, it allowed us to kind of disrupt him. Garnacho then started reoccupying Walker. Wan-Bissaka was, believe it or not, and Anthony were occupying Cancelo when he was on the field. And it became a real problem for City. So the first goal for us was critical, completely changed the game, turned the game on its head. If we hadn't have got that goal, I know it's going to sound stupid, but we wouldn't have won the game. So we might have drawn the game, we might have scored later on, drawn the game, but that goal, that's what won us the game.
Yeah.
I know it sounds a bit stupid, but that's what happens in football.
See, I agree with that, and I'm glad you started talking about Garnacho because that was going to be my next question. Obviously, well, I don't know if it was obvious, but before the match, I didn't think Martial was fit to play. So what I thought the front three would be with Garnacho on the left, Rashford up front, and maybe Anthony on the right. But because of the substitution, as in Garnacho coming on and Martial coming off, I think that also might have been a reason why the complexion of the game changed so much, because Martial not anymore isn't the type of player that's going to get the ball and dribble past you or at you like a Rashford or Garnacho. So I think the introduction of the winger, I think it kind of scared Manchester City a bit. I was a bit worried because Kyle Walker is such a powerful runner. I think he's one of the best right backs in the world personally. I think he has everything to almost perfect that position, and putting Garnacho up against him, in the back of my mind, I was like, it might just be a bit too much, but he done very well. He's playing with more confidence. And you can tell they definitely did have words with him in the week because his decision-making in the final third, in and around the box, was much better. I think maybe 2 weeks ago, if he puts that cross in that gets blocked by Akanji, he plays that ball straight back to Fred, passes the responsibility on, but he decided to shoulder the responsibility. His back to goal up against Ake, who was defending him, but he knew that he was going to get the ball into the box for Rashford, which he did, obviously, and got the assist. I don't know if he's going to start the game against Palace, but even if you have him just coming off the bench, he's probably our best impact player at the moment. I don't know. Do you think he deserves to start against Palace? Or do you think he should be used as an impact player as he was against Manchester City?
I would use him purely as impact just at the minute, just for the next 2-3 games. Use him as impact. I think he surprised me. As I say, I have been critical of him only by the virtue of his final ball. He was just greedy, youthful exuberance, beats a player, doesn't know what to do with it. Now all of a sudden he does. It makes you very, 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 very dangerous. So I'd have him as an impact player. Palace are a big, strong unit. They're not playing particularly well at the moment. They're big. Going to Palace is awful, even for a seasoned pro. Nobody likes going to Palace. Reminds me back in the day when you used to go to Wimbledon. You used to wear 2 pairs of shin pads because you were booted all over the place. And that's what's going to happen with Palace. We don't have that real aggressive type player who relishes going to Palace. There's only Martinez that would actually be looking at that game and thinking, "What, Gaffer, get me playing! Can't wait." Everyone else is a little bit dainty in the way that we play. Even Casemiro is a little bit dainty as a player. Great player, but a bit dainty. So we're going to need the types of players. I think he might throw Weghorst in for presence, for physical presence. So if that is the case, we know Martial's injured. I thought he was injured. I was amazed he started. So I think he'll use Weghorst as a presser. I don't think he'll just use him as an aerial threat. He'll use him as a presser. He presses well. He's got a good touch on him. He's got a decent turn of pace. He's not hugely quick, but he's got a decent turn of pace. But I think he'll occupy the 2 centre halves. Going away to Palace, you're going to need it. With Wan-Bissaka playing as good as he is today, I think he might bring Martinez back in. I know you'll go through the team later, but I think he might bring Martinez back in and put Shaw back out onto left back, because we're going to need a bit more aggression than what we showed against City. But so for me, I would have him in as a impact player just for the next 2 or 3 games. But roll on next season. Once he has a good pre-season with us and he sorts his brain out, watch on next season. Wow.
Now, Freddie, this question is for you. How do you think Weghorst will affect this team? Do you think he's going to play against Palace? Obviously, Martial probably won't be available.
Yes, I do think he will. I think he didn't have his strongest first 45, Martial, but he did go off with an injury, which I'm not sure the details fully. But I think Weghorst will go straight in. I think it'll be a good game for him. As you mentioned, Palace are a very physical side.
Yeah.
Weghorst is actually he's very much an aggressor as well. He's a high presser. Something that I think probably surprised a lot of people when we were linked with him, and then that actually came to light. And I think the likes of Bruno and Eriksen will also benefit in terms of the aerial presence that he'll provide. He'll be a threat on set pieces, both attacking and defending. One of the change this season is we have lost a lot of height. Where we've gained in certain areas, we have lost in height. So you'll notice a lot of our set pieces are routines, not necessarily conventional corners, for example. So he gives another option there too. So I think he'll go straight in. Very interested to see how he turns out. Just on the Garnacho point, I think he's maturing very quickly, a lot quicker than probably most fans anticipated. I don't think you can throw him into the starting lineup. You have to calmly sort of integrate these players because he's only 18, and there's such a stark contrast between 21's football and the Premier League. So I think Ten Hag's utilising him very well. It's great seeing him actually affect games now. He is getting goals and he is adding assists to his game. He is one of our main threats off the bench, which says that's a separate story. I don't think we've got that adequate depth, but he's been a big beneficiary of Sancho being on the sidelines. So he's learning, and every minute he plays in the Premier League, that's probably tenfold what he'd be learning or the experience he'll be gaining in the under-21. So yeah, I don't think he'll start, and I think you just have to continue playing Marcus on the left-hand side. He's got a model professional ahead of him. He'll be learning a lot from him too. I think you just got to continue playing Marcus on the left and use Garnacho as a threat off the bench because imagine him coming on that raw pace that he offers, 60, 70 minutes in, tiring defenders, and you've got Garnacho coming on running at you, probably on the most direct plays that we have in the squad. So yeah, I think Ten Hag, continue using him as you are, and I do think Weghorst will go straight in as well.
Now, do you agree with Freddie, John? Because, would you want Weghorst to go in? Or do you want to just have maybe Garnacho, or maybe even give Sancho a start, give him an hour, half an hour at the end?
No, I agree with Stu and Freddie. I'd use Garnacho as an impact sub, and it is brilliant that at 18 years of age, he is, as Stu mentioned, he's got to be more, he needs to think more about what he's doing, and obviously it's brilliant that he's able, that it shows the faith he has, Ten Hag, in losing a big derby, against City, the champions last 2 years. He throws on 18-year-old saying, I think you can get me something from this game, and the fact that he got the assist for the winner, it shows just how much he's developing and everything. And I personally think that's how I would use him at the moment. I mean, he did the same in November in the Villa Carabao Cup game. We were 2-1 down. After now, he brings him out, he changes the game again, so there's no doubt his talent. So, but for me, I think at this moment, use him as an impact sub, because clearly the defenders he's played up against, like Ashley Young and Kyle Walker, and they're frightened of him. They literally don't know what to do with him at times. And I think that's a testament him. So I would use him when the defenders' legs are tiring. I would consider playing Vegas, up top, because he's kind of like that hustly, bustly striker, and that it might take him a couple of games to get used to the Premier League again and that. And obviously, don't know about Martial, but you can't really rely on him in terms of his injuries. But I think Vegas will be ideal in a game like Palace, because obviously Stu mentions, they're quite physical. Palace will make it tough, and you need players in there who'll be willing to, who can cause a bit of mayhem, be willing to battle defenders and all that, and it can lead to, space, for our attackers, like Rashford and Anthony to, hopefully win us the game and that. So for me, yes, I will consider playing Vegas, and I'll keep Garnacho for the bench for the time being.
Very good points. I agree with that. I would probably start Vegas as well, mainly because of the aerial threat. And I can't remember who said it, but he is faster than he looks. That's something I did learn at the World Cup.
Yeah.
Well, ironically, he's better passing than heading, is he? For 6'6", which is quite unique, isn't it?
He's a good finisher. He's when he gets in, he's 1 in 2. One goal in 2 games. Forget Burnley. He's playing in the poor Burnley side, wasn't he? 1 in 2, and I think he'll score a hatful with us. But with the types of players we've got that can assist, I think he'll score a hatful.
Now, I think probably because he did go to Burnley, that might have led people to think he's rubbish.
Exactly right.
From the Bundesliga, he's not the most fashionable striker, so they might not have heard of him before. But he's someone that we bought in. Now, I have a question from earlier, from the special one on Wan-Bissaka. Would you keep him? Well, Freddie, would you keep him?
Yes, I would. Yeah, I think he's been absolutely superb since the World Cup finished, and I do think that Ten Hag's the perfect manager for him. One of the big changes to our tactical system that Ten Hag's employed this year is the playing with inverted fullbacks, and one of the biggest criticisms of Wan-Bissaka was he wasn't good at overlapping and crossing, whereas he's actually now helping overload midfield. He's getting involved in build-up play more, and is playing to his strengths. And I think we saw yesterday proof of that. I mean, he skipping around. People forget he used to be a winger as well. He is good with his feet. He started off as an attacking player, so his long legs aren't just good, just for slide tackling. He is good on the ball. I think it's a little bit over-exaggerated how poor he is technically. I think at the moment, for me, he's our first starting right back. I mean, he's banging form. Appreciate Dallow's injured, and he had a good spell before the World Cup, but I don't think you can drop him, or I don't think you can sell him at the moment unless a superb replacement is brought in. Who's in the ilk that Ten Hag fancies. So yeah, it's really good to see Wan-Bissaka regain his form. I think City as well. I mean, perfect game for him. I mean, do you remember the Sterling stats where Sterling's never played against us, and Wan-Bissaka just had him on toast every time? It seemed like Foden experienced much of the same as well. So yeah, it's good that we've got a few options now. I was a bit worried about Dalot, I must admit, at the beginning of the season in recent months. So it's good to have those two options and those two competing against each other, and hopefully getting the best out of each other. The same with Malacia and Shaw. They're both sets of fullbacks are getting minutes under their belts, and they're both playing well. So yeah, for me, definitely keep him.
See, I'd agree. I think confidence is key. Ten Hag and the coaching staff are definitely giving him the confidence he needs. Like little things, he's doing different things. I saw him switch the ball against Manchester City, and I wouldn't be joking if I was to say I've never seen Wan-Bissaka switch the ball. That's the first time I've seen him do it at Manchester United. He's doing things which he hasn't done before. He's never been. I mean, he's always had good ball retention. It just doesn't look nice. And I think when you see clips on Twitter or social media of him making one mistake and then it gets, a million views, then that's the stigma that he has attached to him. He's always had good ball retention. He just might not be the exact type of ball retention that we want at Manchester United that we would get with Dalot, because Dalot does the step overs. He can he can put his laces through the ball, which Wan-Bissaka doesn't seem to do. He uses the inside of his foot more. He can use his left foot, Dalot, whereas Wan-Bissaka doesn't do that as much. But defensively, I don't think we've ever had any problems with Wan-Bissaka. It's just going forward and being a part of the play. Even going more central, like Manchester City's fullbacks, is something that Luke Shaw or Malacia or Dalot or now Wan-Bissaka do a little bit more. He looks more confident on the ball and he looks more assertive. Wouldn't be surprised to see him get a couple of goals this season as well, given how far forward he gets. Because if Rashford didn't score the goal, Wan-Bissaka was behind him to tap it in as well. I think I saw another comment here as well about Martial. I can't remember who commented it, but they're obviously not a fan. And they're talking about selling him. But Victor Osimhen, Napoli striker, is somebody that we've been linked with before, John. Is that somebody who you think could be the missing piece? Well, here's a comment. I found it. Is Victor Osimhen the missing piece of the puzzle?
Well,
who could take us to the title?
He didn't do too badly on Friday night, did he? So, but no, I think he's obviously that's more of a topic for summer. Like we will need an out-and-out goal scorer, whether it'll be him or maybe someone like Harry Kane or someone. I think Osimhen, he's certainly one of the brightest prospects in Europe. But we do know with Napoli, they do drive a hard bargain with their play, so it might not be easy to get rid of him, especially if they're looking good for the league in Serie A, don't they? So if they were to win the league, that'll make it probably extra difficult to get him. But I think he's certainly someone you can consider for that. I think the problem Martial is, I rate him as a player, but you can't rely on him. He always gets injured, doesn't he?
Yeah.
And it's like you can't. As a manager, I think Ten Hag does like Martial. He's doing everything he can to try and get him fit, but he just keeps getting injured, doesn't he? I think if it continues, which unfortunately I think it might, then you might have to make a decision in the summer about what to do with him, because you can't have a decent striker who's only available half the time and that. But I do think we will eventually need to get a striker out, which will bring us to another level. Like I say, Osimhen will be a good one. Harry Kane, there's a few other ones around Europe as well, I'm sure. But we'll definitely need a goal scorer in the summer.
See, my one would be Harry Kane, but as you said, that is a conversation for the summer. I've got one last question for you guys, and I'm going to start with Stu. I'm going to need the name of the player and the reason why you've given them the Man of the Match award for the game yesterday. I'm going to start with Stu.
Yeah, I gave it to Garnacho. There was 2 or 3 really good candidates for it, and Wan-Bissaka being one of them. I thought Luke Shaw was excellent as well. But you don't have to play a full 90 minutes to be awarded Man of the Match. It's what you do with your period on the pitch that defines how well you've played. And I just thought Garnacho came and changed it. He just changed the whole dynamic of the game. He changed. Like I said, I've never seen Kyle Walker scared before. Kyle Walker doesn't fear anyone. He loves the challenge, but Garnacho just scared the living daylights out of him, and it was good to see. But the reason I've given him, A, he changed the game, but B, his thought process was far better than I've ever seen. Yeah. If he carries down that path, we're going to have a serious player on our hands. Serious player. I didn't see it 6 months ago, and I've given my reasons for why. But now, overnight, someone's got at him. And for me, I just thought he was brilliant. His cameo role was brilliant, and so it was Garnacho for me. So
Garnacho has 1 vote for Man of the Match. John, who's your Man of the Match and why?
I'm going to. I said this, pre-show. I actually thought I'd give it Fred, actually, because I think that there are a few contenders, like Bruno and Rashford and the defenders in there. But for me, I think Fred, the way that the key to the game, I think, was keeping De Bruyne quiet. And I know he got the assist for Grealish, but apart from that, he didn't really do very much. And I know we marked Haaland out of the game, but for me, if you're going to beat City, you have to keep De Bruyne quiet. You've got to reduce the service and all that. And that's, for me, practically where I think we won the game in terms of where we dealt with their main threat, which I think is De Bruyne. So for me, I'd go with Fred.
Nice. Well, before I ask Freddie, in the comment section down below, everybody watching, let us know who your man of the match would be. Freddie, who's your man of the match?
I actually agree with John. I would go for Fred too. Sorry to not offer as much variety on that. But I think it's one of those games where you do look back and you do, one of the first things you remember is Fred's job on De Bruyne, who for me is one of the best players in the league, if not the best, and B, certainly is the key that, or one of the main outlets for Erling Haaland, especially this season. So if you invalidate City's a threat at the source, i.e. De Bruyne, then you can sort of mitigate one of their main threats in Haaland, and Fred did that to a T. He's had a lot of stick over the last 2 years, and a lot of it I don't think is warranted. He's always available. He's very reliable. I think he was being played out of position in the last few years. He's now being played in an 8, a bit further forward, and he's not being asked to do the defensive responsibilities that Casemiro, I think, is being asked to do. And he's been brilliant. He's really flourished as an all-round player. And again, credit to Ten Hag for coaching that into him, or making him realise that at United. So I think Fred for me, but I think the other thing to point is it's so refreshing us having to think about this, and actually, could have been Luke Shaw, could have been Wan-Bissaka. I think in recent years there's been one or two standouts, probably Bruno most of the time. Now we have to take our pick, and that's one of the most refreshing things I think that's happened this season. I mean, Luke Shaw at centre back. If you were to have mentioned that at the beginning of the season, then pretty much keep Haaland out of the game as well. I don't think anyone would have thought that. Wan-Bissaka, brilliant, had his hand in sort of I think he had a few pre-assists, his hand, especially in the first goal, playing it to Casemiro. Casemiro himself, structurally, we're just playing as a unit and as a team. So they could have easily been a 3 or 4 man of the matches. Garnacho as well, as Stu mentioned. But yeah, I think for me, Fred's doing the dirty work. I don't think he gets as enough recognition that he deserves. So yeah, I'll give Fred his praise today.
I will say the All for United man of the match is Fred, because he does win the majority vote. But mine would have been Wan-Bissaka, because he didn't do anything wrong. And I think Stu said that he kind of eliminated Phil Foden from the game. Manchester City do put a lot of crosses in the box with De Bruyne or Phil Foden drilling them past or clipping them in, and there weren't many that was going through Wan-Bissaka's side. Also, when he was on the ball, he didn't lose it much, or he didn't lose it at all, really. And he links up very well with Casemiro, which is something I've noticed quite a lot. Casemiro does drift across from left to right, but when he's playing with Wan-Bissaka, there is a lot of 1-2s. There's a lot of intricate play, which I haven't really seen from Wan-Bissaka before. So he would have been my man of the match. But as I said, the All for United man of the match for the win against Manchester City is Fred. Not something, to be honest, which I expected to hear when I saw the starting lineup. I was a bit scared when I saw Fred in the middle, but he did have a very good game. Now we are coming.
I was actually watching Stu. You did a preview for the City game, and I actually put in the comments, if United win, Casemiro will be man of the match. But I just think, because of uniqueness, I thought Fred was the one who stood out for me. I think because I look for the midfield more than any other position. I thought the way he managed to run and kept in quiet, that's why I go for it. And he has been doing well lately.
Yeah, on that show, actually, I did put Fred in my starting lineup to kind of shore up the middle, but it did affect Eriksen's output.
Yeah. I think leaving Eriksen out might have been a good idea, because when we did get battered 6-3, he looked like a bit of a ghost. And he has been playing a lot of football recently. Again, one of the comments here, which I read before, Eriksen dies around wrong choice of words there. Eriksen's finished around the hour mark. So I think not playing him against City was a bit of tactical genius from Erik ten Hag, who I think out-tactic Pep Guardiola yesterday.
Yeah.
And the other thing it did when he brought Garnacho and took Eriksen off, he also pulled Bruno back to his normal position, and that's also a decision which won us the game as well, because then Bruno became more of a natural threat after that change. So
Eriksen started, didn't
he? Yeah, he did. Yeah, Bruno doesn't work up top.
No,
he just doesn't. It doesn't work.
So, and I don't think Eriksen works that far forward either. So
no, Eriksen needs to play alongside
Casemiro
and then Bruno. It's a great threesome, but it was the right decision to play Fred. Not even on hindsight. It was something I suggested he did.
Well, and I think that's the key to it. If he'd gone Casemiro or Eriksen, we probably wouldn't have won that game. That's why I think playing Fred in that position, that's what won us the game.
I think what you get from Fred off the ball in terms of the running, even if he doesn't make the tackle, he's there in your face. The only problem I have with Fred is no matter how much he wins the ball back, I've seen him pass the ball off the pitch a few too many times. So eventually, once we get to that stage, he will need to be upgraded. But in a match like this and the team that we have now, I think he's the perfect fit. Do any of you guys have any other points to add on to why Fred, was the best player on the pitch yesterday?
I just think he offers something that the other players don't. He's just very tenacious. He's very dogged. He chases everything down. Whereas a Casemiro is a bit more elegant. He'll close the channels, probably a bit more graceful. So it's a good combination, and I don't think there's any coincidence why those two play for Brazil together as much as they do. So very good option in the bigger games to have those two, and then you can utilise Casemiro and Eriksen.
I think one of the journalists on Athletic, Carl Anker, I remember him saying a couple of months ago, he's like, after 5 or 10 minutes, whether you're going to get a good Fred or a bad Fred.
Yeah.
And after the first 5-10 minutes, I thought, he's playing well. He's going to be good today. And that sums him up.
I think he's playing the right amount this season. He he shouldn't have been an automatic starter. Like same with McTominay. He's a good squad player. He's a good option in certain games. But we can not a regular starter. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
All right, guys, and everybody in the comments. We are coming to the end of the show, but before we do say goodbye, I just want to let you guys know that All for United WFC, which is the women's channel, will be live tomorrow night at 7 o'clock, reacting to their 6-0 victory against.
Can I just point out that we did release a match day vlog of that on the channel about 2 hours ago or something. So and just to give you a hint there, 3 of the goals were caught on camera. It's about 7 minutes long, I think. So if you haven't seen it already, do give it a watch on it, and it rounds up a perfect weekend for United.
Yeah. It couldn't have gone any better. A victory against
battering Liverpool and a comeback win against City last 10 minutes. I want Liverpool and these Luton.
All eras come to an end.
They do.
In the words, I do have my bald cap somewhere, but I can't actually. I haven't been able to find it for about a week. It would have been perfect for tonight. But thank you guys for watching. Thank you, Stu, John, and Freddie for coming on as well. Where can everybody find you, Stu?
You can abuse me on Twitter at Stu Woolley if you feel like it.
And John?
Don't abuse me, but you can find me at John_Kermode2 on Twitter.
And Freddie?
I don't mind if you abuse me at MUFC_FW. Thank you very much.
You can find me on Twitter at Anton Brooks A&B. I will talk rubbish back to you if you talk rubbish to me. So I have plenty of time for it. So do what you want. But we're all on Twitter. Our ats are next to our name on the screen, as you can see, just in case you weren't able to hear, or we might be on mute or something. But thank you guys for watching, and we will see you all soon. Thank you guys for coming on.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.